was on that with you.
No, doesn't matter.
Joe and I.
Joe and Marion.
I'd like to call the order Schenectady City Council Committee meeting for Monday, March 3rd, 2025. And the first, the mayor would like to, Mayor, you wanted to take a item out of order?
So, are they ready?
Yeah, where's it going?
So, Madam President, it's a item subject to negotiation, and there may be HIPAA items, so that ask that the council committee move into executive session.
You want to call claims to order?
Yes. So I'm calling to order the Claims Committee. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight, first of which is the high-cost pharmacy claim. The mayor is indicating that that's a conversation that needs to be held in executive session. However,
Oh, whoa, okay. Mayor, we're going to have to move that into government office. That's okay with you?
That's the discretion of the council.
Okay.
It's not.
Okay, we're going to move it to government operations, so call back to order.
Call to order?
The other two.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to call to order government operation. And there's one item that we need to move into executive session, the high-cost pharmacy claims. A motion to go into executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Members
We
of
are-
the public will have to leave.
We're in executive session.
These are just sort of the physical certificates.
Oh, you gotta stand over there. He has to stand over there.
Yes. Any of your comments?
I can send this around as well.
So this is,
Send this around. This is, the actual certificates, if you want to pass the whole folder around and take a look at them.
Oh, you just wanted to look at them?
Sure.
I thought I'd give them out. Okay. Are these all the same, essentially?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here to do a brief presentation on certificate of use. The certificate of use program is set up in the city. It's been in our ordinance since approximately the mid-90s. And Mayor McCarthy has really done some changes there, and as of late, it's really coming to fruition. The purpose of the certificate of use is to establish a level of legitimacy of certain types of businesses in the city. And typically, these businesses that require certificate of use are businesses that require other certificates or licenses in other agencies, whether it be state agencies or county agencies. And basically, we are a endpoint to verify that it is a legitimate business operating in the city. So this process starts in code enforcement, and then the documents that we gather for the certificate of use are reviewed in the law department, and who they approve or deny, and that certificate ends up finishing off in code enforcement. And we finish this up with a inspection to verify current code compliance. And also there is a level of, there's a somewhat of a publicity element to this, where we go in the field and we meet with the business owners, and we talk about fire department, police department, code enforcement. We welcome them aboard, and we also provide them a little bit of a benefit of publicity, like I said, to bring them aboard, and we'll share their welcoming on our city website, and give them a little boost to the public.
And these are designed to be easily identifiable, so when you go into a venue, there's also one for the rental certificates, that people know that the review's taken place and they're in compliance with what the basic code is, because we still have a good number of landlords who don't fully comply with the rental certificate, and there are a number of businesses that still are not in total compliance with the certificate of use or the public assembly component. And part of this is just to raise the awareness under the council, those things that are out there, and then our general campaign to raise the awareness across the city so that businesses understand what's expected of them, and that residents, when they go into a venue, are able to easily identify the certification so that they are compliant with the building codes, fire codes, and the related criteria that authorizes them to operate within the city of Schenectady.
Questions?
Yeah. So Brian, walk us through what has changed from the previous certificate of use to the one that we have in front of us here, the certificate of use. What have you changed?
So there's been no changes since I've been on board with the city.
Okay.
This certificate has a level of, it's a document that can't be forged, and But there's been no changes since I've been on
So
board.
it's more of documents, it's more of a
What-
proof of fraud, proof documents.
It is very
The
fraud.
process is a little bit, the criteria hasn't changed. And on these, for venues that I will go out with the fire chief, police chief, building inspector, we stop, we tell them we want the business to be profitable, want it to be successful, want them to comply. A lot of the venues are, again, are very cooperative. There's still some that, what I call, make poor choices in some of their business decisions. You have some loitering around it, you have drug dealing that are ancillary to the activities. And then, of course, some of the fundamental things of just policing the property so that litter and the unsightliness is taken care of. So it's just raising the awareness and trying to support those businesses that are compliant, and then with a little community pressure, get those that aren't compliant to see the right path and do the right thing and become compliant.
So another question on the certificate of use. When the amendment was recently passed, wasn't it valid for 2 years? The certificate of use?
Certificate of use,
Valid for 2 years? But you inspect every year, but it's valid for 2 years.
so certificate of use is valid for 1 year, so there's a renewal in 1 year. So the fee is quite a bit more, it's a lot less. So a certificate of use initially is $200, and then the renewal is $50 every year.
Yes, I understand that, but the validity of this certificate of use, I don't have the documents, I'm trying to look at it, but I think that was presented to us, valid for 2 years. Can you look at that and get back to us?
It's an
It
annual.
is if they pay the fee
Yes.
and then they're compliant, then we reissue another one of these. But that's the fee structure the council's put in place, John.
Yes, I understand. I understand we did that, we did the amendment, but I'm saying that the document that was presented to us was looking at 2 years extent, 2 years of, and not just 1 year. Can we look at that and see, to make sure that,
Absolutely.
and if that, because you have 1 year, and if it's 2 year, then we need to change this, the notation here.
Upon payment of the fee, we would reissue a new certificate. They don't have to go through another inspection or something, so they get it for the second year, but when the fee hasn't been paid, they're not totally compliant with the code.
Yeah, let's revisit that just for clarity, to see where we are, if you don't mind, Brian.
No problem. I'll get back to you on that, okay?
So, yeah, so I was thinking here it would be paid up front, so that scenario that you were explaining, in my mind, wouldn't come into play. I just think that it would just be paid and then they would cover 2 years. But I do have a question on the length of time that this is going to take. Because you said that you start with code enforcement, goes up to law, comes back to code enforcement for an inspection. Can you just kind of really give me a little bit more clarity that you start here, you go to the business, walk me through an inspection if you don't mind.
So-
Walk us through one.
So the inspection is after approval. That's at the very end. But the process, the law department's been very efficient on lately. We gather the documents. So we take the application in. There's a checklist that is included with the application. So we do the gathering of the documentations that are required. And then when that is complete, when all the gathering of the documents are completed, we send that up to the law department. They have their review process. They review the documents. And then upon approval is when the schedules happen with the mayor for the meeting. And then an inspection is also scheduled at that time. Okay?
All right,
The inspection, depending on the size, the actual square footage of the business, it would take a half an hour at the most, approximately.
So the other question about this is staffing.
Yes.
How, with the amount of staff that you have, is this going to be more work for the staff? Is it going to be increased in any way, increase the workload in any way?
So this is not a new program.
I understand that.
We're keeping up with this process just fine. So these inspections we're handling this perfectly.
Okay, because I know we had a further conversation about some outstanding things, like the 4,949, where there were things outstanding, those were the violations, et cetera. So I'm just making sure, if we're doing this, that we're closing the loop on these. Before, it was, you said this was paperwork, so I just want to make sure that we're, when we get to the end of this, that paperwork thing comes, is closed, and we're not having outstanding certificates of use that really were done, but we just didn't close it out.
We're keeping up with this, and we're very thorough on this process. Do you have concerns that we're not able to keep up with this program?
I'm asking you a question, because there was concerns about the other set, and it was about, what you specifically said was that it was, it had to do with paperwork, essentially, not the inspections getting done, but being closed out once they got back in house. So that's what prompts my question.
So our staff in code enforcement is keeping up with this certificate of use process, this certificate of use program perfectly.
Okay?
Okay?
Question. So
Yes.
I was under the impression that any physical space operating as a business had to have a certificate of use, but it seems like you're saying some businesses don't.
There's certain business types, and I'll
Could you
give
give me an
you
example
examples.
of-
Yeah, I'll give you all the business types that
Business types
require
that
this.
don't need a certificate.
So it's a banquet facility, a bar, cannabis or tobacco retail and consumption. It is convenience stores, drug stores, private clubs or lodges, restaurants, secondhand dealers. That's the
These
complete
are ones
list.
that need it.
Those are the ones that need it, is what you're
Yes.
saying. You know, I'm asking for, like, give me examples of a business that would not need a
Would
certificate.
not need it. So, let's see, a barber shop, a laundromat. The list is long of business types. There's two. I can,
No, sure. Is there, like, what's the logic behind that? Barbershops, laundromats not needing a certificate of use?
so, that brings a great question up. In my opinion, we might include barber shops in the future because there's a license there, a state license. But like I spoke about in the beginning, so most of these businesses that require certificate of use require licenses or certificates from other agencies, state agencies or county agencies, such as the health department for their food permit, certificate of authority from the state to collect sales tax, liquor licenses, and on and on and on.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's all built into our ordinance. It's pretty detailed about the process that the law department has for the required documents. So,
So it sounds like it's like gloss, and I'm trying not to oversimplify the efforts here. I would say if the intent is to focus on making the community aware, I would caution that we are changing too much in a fiscal year where the conversation that we're going to be switching gears to in a few items is trash. And I would say that in and of itself, and getting the community to understand the difference between appropriate or what needs to require a sticker, adding this on top of that. I imagine you weren't present at our last council meeting. A lot of the members here were, I think everyone was. We heard from an individual who was talking emotionally about the impacts of our sidewalks not being cleaned. So I would hear those sentiments from our community saying, I think enforcing what is currently in place is more beneficial than adding on an additional layer. And I would,
I'm not asking the council to change anything. This has been on the books since the late 90s.
right, no, but it's being presented to us for benefit.
No, he said for what benefit?
So that you're aware of what we're doing in the field and these certificates are in place so that people can understand what we're doing with these inspections. And we have businesses that are very good about compliance, and we have some that choose to, what I call, make poor choices, which we have to spend time and effort on, and those are the ones that tend to create more of a negative environment within the neighborhoods.
Pretty much, I get that, but I would say, as a consumer, I'm not looking for a piece of paper on the wall to dedicate
So,
or winning.
so this certificate carries a lot of weight. So when you see this on the wall, it's just instant verification that this business is in compliance, they're legitimate, and they have done what they need to do to comply with the rules and regulations in the city and in the state for that matter.
But I'm saying, how does that differentiate your response as managing this, whether that be presented.
So this has been in place long before I was.
No, I'm saying one second, but if you were presenting there, you'd be presenting there for a reason, correct? At that place of business? Or are you doing blind visits throughout the community and then seeing?
So we have somewhat of an initiative going on because we've been a little deficient with this for some reasons here and there. COVID had played a part in some of this, but we have a little bit of an initiative going on. This has been in place since the mid-90s, and all these businesses are required to have this certificate, and they need it. It's part of our ordinance. So that being said, we're just making sure that all the businesses are in compliance.
I don't know, Ms. Patrick, you have to do that. Oh, yeah, you changed it, okay. Well, Mr. Lee. Mr.
This is
Farley.
also, I would like to say that this is very beneficial to the business. It shows, like I talked about, it shows visual verification that they are a legitimate business in the city, and they're not operating illegally.
So there is, be clear, one of the components is the rental certificate, which mirrors that. And we, again, housing has been an issue something council has talked about, and we want people to have safe and decent housing. And we still have a lot of landlords who are non-compliant with the rental certificate program.
So my question is, so what happens if a business applies for their certificate of use, but they're not approved for that? Like what in-house records do we keep of that? So in other words, if I wanted to look at the last 20 businesses that applied for a certificate of use, but were not granted that certificate of use, where would I find that information?
I think I might need to get back to you on that, so don't misquote.
That's true.
It'd be still in law if it hasn't been issued. They're not.
No, Officer Rose.
That's what.
Yeah, I think I'll send you an email and follow up on that. to
But
let
it
you
would
know.
go to law or to the mayor's office.
Yeah, typically, if there's a denial, it's from a simple document maybe being outdated or on the verge of outdated, and the business is supplying an updated document there. So a denial doesn't stick for very long, if you will. They end up with an approval at some point, that is what I'm seeing. And, we see denials maybe once a week, but it's for a simple update that is needed on it.
There are serious ones where people operate clubs or venues that are non-compliant. They put people in what would be a high-risk situation. I have, closed some of them down some nights. We mobilized fire department, police department codes to remediate what was clearly an extremely hazardous situation.
So that information would be, I could get that from law department?
Depending on what, those you wouldn't have anything from law. They didn't make an application to begin with.
No, I'm talking about the scenario that I was saying was, if I wanted to say what is the last, let's look at the last 20 businesses that were denied, I'd be able to get that information from the law department.
Probably. But I'm not sure we have 20 that are outstanding.
No.
Yeah, I mean, most of the denials are because we collect, the city collects probably 10 or 12 different documents as part of most certificate of use applications, like a health department certificate, insurance certificates. So most of the denials are just the insurance has lapsed and we need a new insurance document, or they're missing their sales tax document. So,
But I guess my question is, for whatever those reasons might be, if I wanted to look at that information would be in the law department.
yeah, you can come look at our files.
No, just for this in particular. Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, Mr. O'Brien had something?
Yeah, just some history here. I was the sponsor of this legislation back in the day. And it goes with the nuisance ordinance as well. The idea was the points, the certificate of use and then you would have the nuisance based on the point structure, based on the businesses. So you read the two together, these are the type of business that may be causing problems, and that's how come the nuisance schedule with the points was developed. And then, so it was designed as both of them together, the nuisance ordinance as well as certificate of use, because what are the points designed for? Revoking the certificate of use if bad activities are happening during that time period. So,
Mr. Mutsugan?
Yeah, Brian, in the past, I can recall that we used to send out notices to business to let them know that their certificate is coming up, it's going to expire in the next 3 months, and, provide that letter and also provide the form that is needed in that mail to them. Are you still doing that?
So we have picked up on that. We have an initiative in place as we speak that is just came to fruition, and that has to do with certificate of use and public assembly. And yes, we are doing that. So we have a courtesy letter that we're posting if we're not able to make direct contact with the business owner, and with the packet, and also with explanation of the reasons and the whole process for establishing.
So that is on the way.
It's in process.
It's in
It's
process.
in the works as we speak, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Are these application online still, that business can go online and upload all the necessary documentation and then send it off, submit it to your?
It is online. We've had some discussions whether we're going to keep it up online. Those discussions are going on as we speak. It's tough. So the amount of documentation that needs to be uploaded and the communication that is needed directly to the applicant is sometimes missing there in the online forum. So we're working on that. We're having discussions there.
So you currently don't have it online, or you're not using the online version?
It is online.
But you're not using the online version?
We are. Not many are coming in. I believe we might be contacting the applicant and getting them in. So there's some interaction with law department there as well.
So would it be more of a less of burden on the staff if you kind of work to create that online version and to simplify it? I mean, yes, they have to upload the documents, and if it's not uploaded, then somebody's going to reach out to them and let them know that they're missing a document. But the online will help with the staffing and the resource down there.
That's the goal, John, is to automate as much of it as we can. And some of this is, we have in the files phone numbers and just snail mail addresses. So it's to get email addresses, to get updated contact information, because the organizational structure will change in these businesses, and just be able to get hold of the appropriate people and to do it in a timely manner.
No, I'm not talking about getting hold of them. I'm talking about have available the online version of this form, and then they go there, they upload all information and then submit it to your office, and then they process it to the.
But some of it's to send the notice out to remind them first,
Yes.
then to be able to, just as you're saying, to be able to do it online.
Work in progress there.
Mayor, is there something that in particular prompted more of initiatives being done in terms of this? Is there something going on in terms of people not having these that's been come to the attention of you or code enforcement that is prompting a more focus on this right now?
It's just the ongoing efforts to try and get compliance. And it's the nature of the work, which is in many areas, you have a small number of businesses or entities which take most of the time and efforts of the staff. You have a good chunk of places that are compliant, they do what they're asked, they send things in, they're timely. There's a smaller group that drives the problems and the complaints. And so it's how do we message this, that there are ones that are out there. People see this, whether you're renting an apartment, whether you're going into a store or a venue, you know that they are compliant and that they are working with the city.
And in terms of messaging, you said that you're going to let businesses know that like we're really focused on this, that we need to have everything in order. How is the city doing that kind of rollout to let people know? you know, you need
Well,
to.
it hasn't been like a rollout. This is a continuous effort that's just been ongoing. And so this was I said it would be a 5-minute briefing for the council, just to.
But it's not. And so people are gonna have questions, and so I'm just wondering if, I mean, it's like anything else, we have it in place, and essentially, for lack of a better word, there hasn't really been enforcement. So how are we saying to the public that we're coming? And if you go to a business and they're out of compliance at this point in time, is there an opportunity for them to get into compliance, or is it automatically that you shut it down?
So that's part of the initiative. So when we show up at a business that is not in compliance, we give them a courtesy letter that says with the package, and it explains our process and lets them know that they are need to get their application in.
And how long do they have to do that?
Well, we're not posting a timeline on there and threatening. It's a courtesy letter. We're telling them they need to get in. So unofficially, we have that set for 10 days. So if we don't get any response in 10 days, we will revisit. And we will see if they're ready to comply. If there's not compliance, we'll issue a violation.
Well, just offering up the fact that if someone noticed, I feel like you need to give them a certain amount of time that you have to have it in by then. Leaving it out there kind of open-ended leaves it open-ended. So I feel there needs to be a deadline here. We're giving you this warning, and you need to get your paperwork in, and this is the date. Otherwise, you'll be visiting them. You may be visiting them repeatedly.
I will take note of that opinion, and I will. I value that opinion.
Mr. Rivera.
So this is not something new. This is just something new on paper, a different
And even
texture.
this has been
Yeah, this has been out for
2.5 years, 3 years.
I have recalled over the years that code enforcement has been driving this and getting people to come in to be compliant as much as they can. Yes, there are some people, can't control them. But what the PR message is that we need to continue to send that package out, send the notification out ahead of time, remind people that they need to come in compliance in the next 3 months, is going to expire. Those are the things we need to drive and look at the reports coming in every month or every quarter to look at, say, well, we still have 5 individuals who are running business there, certificate expired, that we need to make a call, or we just go back out and issue a violation, notice of violation. We can't just leave it like that and then expect people. Sometimes people are busy, and yes, it's part of business that they need to submit the application and get approved every year or every 2 years. But it's something that's continuing to be drive from code enforcement and to make people aware of the new things that we have in place and to help to bring people in compliance.
Understood.
We can't just say, well, we have this on books and there are new laws that will pass this year and we're just waiting for them to violate it and then we charge them a ticket. We have to have that PR portion, which is very, very critical in any department of the city, to educate people out there on what's new, what's happening from the city council to the department, and the department is responsible for driving those changes to the public.
You can rest assured that I have the same outlook. So.
And even if it's not new, but we're really, really trying to make sure it's enforced now to let people know, I think it's important. Mr.
Well, he had his hand up first, I think.
You do have your hand.
I am going to go, but I'll let him.
No, go ahead.
Well, no, I think I appreciate this update, and I appreciate that this is the process that has been in place. And this was very informative to all of us, I'm sure, in terms of really trying to understand this process and as it exists. And I think also what I'm hearing, or at least this is how I'm thinking about it, especially when I think about the rental certificate and how that protects tenants, and so I guess I want to say on a positive note that I appreciate the work that you're doing, because I think that overall what it means is that we're trying as a city to really ensure that the businesses that are out there are doing their, that we're protecting our residents, we're protecting the consumers of these businesses, we're protecting the tenants. So I appreciate the work that you and your team are doing
Thank you so much.
to keep this going. And I do agree with you also that it does also help to promote the business as well. When they, when there is a certificate on the wall, it does give that sense of accountability and confidence to the person walking into the business as well. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I would echo a lot of what Ms. Patch was saying as far as, being that this is something that's been happening for a long time. I think that this is definitely very important work in the city. And I think that because it's that level of importance is why anytime we have a conversation about this, there's going to be, we're going to view this through a critical lens and say, okay, I guess my questioning is around like anytime that we're talking about enforcement, things of that nature, we also have to be looking at like, are we seeing any trends in types of businesses that aren't getting their certificates? Are these businesses located in a certain neighborhood? And looking at the trends, so therefore we are, informing our practices and adjusting if need be moving forward. So as much as I agree and appreciate what you're doing, especially coming up and talking to your city council offices, this is probably the favorite thing to do. I would imagine.
I'll enjoy it more.
Yeah, it is. All right. Okay. Good. We gotta be tougher on me then. No. So I guess, but in all seriousness, these certificates are very important, but they're also a point of access and access to opportunity for economic growth and things like that for communities. So anytime that we're dealing in that, we have to be asking ourselves the tough questions of ourselves to say, are we seeing trends? Are we seeing anything that's happening that might inform our practices to maybe need to be changed or maybe not? So that's my question about like, okay, let's look at, if there's denials out there, let's look at, who's being denied and what businesses, for what reasons, what neighborhoods. Like those are all the questions that I think that are really important to ask. So I think that my colleagues would agree that that's an important thing to look at.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Boudiver,
Yeah, just touching on rental certificate, I know we had a major shortfall in terms of the last couple of years in terms of bringing these rental units in compliance. Is no secret. I'm just putting out a scenario. If you were to go into our neighborhoods across the city, what would be your message to the landlord to help them to kind of like send a message out there to help them to come in compliance? Because being in compliance with the rental certificate benefits landlord and benefits tenants. So both parties are win-win for the landlord and the tenant. So what would be your message to the landlord?
Well, it would be maintain your property and don't be absentee. That would be my message to the landlords.
Mr. Williams.
I would just want to say a point of emphasis. I definitely understand the importance of this, but also the system has to be like maintained at an optimal level. Because if businesses are allowed to exist illegally, I think that calls into question the importance of being in good standing. So I know there was some language that was thrown on the table, and I very openly think that this department, you unfortunately get no points for trying because your duty is to enforce the code to that degree. And I would say, and I would hope that this comes across like very personally, but also like as a point of support. If you are talking to a business, it is for an important reason. There is no question about why you exist. There is no, I'm asking for you to do this. It is you do this or you will close. And I think once that narrative has been understood and respected, I think that is where you find quicker responses, because truly your officers, your time is valuable. And if you are at a doorstep, you need to be given that level of discretion so people know you're going to leave.
So we are, there's a level of firmness, but our approach is to work with the public. And I look at this a little different than enforcement. I look at it more as compliance, and it is working. Our approach is working. It's working well. So, I think our approach is on point here, and it is working. We're seeing great results.
Mayor?
I just want to be clear that my message to businesses is that I want them to see the city as a partner, that I want them to work with the police department, with the fire department, with code enforcement, and see the city as a resource. And I go out and I make that pitch to it. And since I've been mayor, you've seen a dramatic shift in the neighborhood stores, the bodegas, the quality that's in there, the product offering, that we've worked with them, and that there are more of them that are out there today, and the quality of merchandise they have is far superior to what it was before. We still have some that make poor choices. To use the example, was it Munchies on Eastern Avenue? You know, we shut that down. He's trying to reopen it. Maybe it'll happen, maybe not. There could be a year ban on that. When we close that store, if you look at the crime maps that go out in the data, that Eastern Avenue neighborhood was a hot spot for activity, for the drug sales, for auto accidents, for shootings, for other things. When that store closed, that all dropped. It basically eliminated, because of that one venue, again, who was just engaged in a course of criminal conduct, and it was detracting from the other businesses that are on the street there that are reputable, that are doing a good job, and that are serving the neighborhood.
So, Brian, something just crossed my mind in terms of touching on staffing and the amount of resource you have. I know there's no secret that you have a high turnover rate in your department. And, you know, I'm going to leave that up to the public. I'm not going to guess or make assumption of what's happening there. Why is there a high turnover rate? You're looking to enforce this rental certificate of use and all these things here. How are you going to do it with the limited staff that you have there right now? What is happening down there that is seeing a high turnover rate from your department? We don't see that across the city, other department. Yes, you have a one or two, but not to that level of we have seen or I have heard over the last several months.
Well, historically, from my understanding, our department has had a level of turnover. I wasn't here for some of that, so it's hard for me to speak about that.
No, I'm asking you to speak about the time that you've been here. That's what I'm talking about. The turnover that happened after, in your time, under your watch.
I don't know if it's a high level or if it's because I haven't seen what preceded me. I don't know if it's a high level. There is a level of turnover in my department, and we're building a great team down there is how I'd like to respond to that. We're building a very great team. I think, you know, it will, when everything falls into place, I think you'll notice the team that we're building is going to be wonderful. And I will take measures to eliminate that level of turnover in the future. That is a concern of mine. I do want to make changes. I'll be here again to present to you some requests over the months or years to make a difference in that turnover rate. And that's my response to that.
Yeah, I think something needs to address because there have been complaints to the HR department from employees, to the union president about that also. So in my kind of work, nobody leaves because of goodness. People leave because of something happening. And we need to address it, we need to fix it so that we can retain people. We don't want to see people leave after certain years, people being here for a couple of years and leaving. Why? We need to retain people, and that's something we talk about during the budget, that we as council need to look at funding to retain people. And we have done that in the past, working with the mayor to retain people when people are leaving and they're critical position, we up funding to keep them. So that's something we want to bear in mind here, but it's a problem that is out there and it's being talked in the tongue that what's happening in your department. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt to address it and, you know, nip it in the bud.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I'd say in response to that, if we're going to be making comments, they need to be evidence-based. And I know we can have hearsay, but I think, to your credit, I think giving the opportunity for the city to function with respect to documented issues being presented to HR is very important. So I know this is a sentiment that you've raised before, Mr. Woodbury, but I want to make sure we are giving you and not only other departments grace, but truly, if anyone has these issues in their workplace, there's an HR for a reason, and if HR is not responding, which I have no intention to think that they aren't, I think that is when you can work us in as further advocates to ensure that the work of the city is getting done appropriately.
Appreciate
Ms.
that.
Patrick?
Yes, I guess I would echo that with due respect that, I mean, at least in my experience, it has been, throughout my career, if there's a new sheriff in town, so to speak, I mean, sometimes there's turnover. Past practice, past, whatever, and I'm not saying that there was, but sometimes folks, if there's new regulations or new rules or a new culture within a department, that can lead to some turnover. So just naturally when there's a new manager. So again, I actually agree with Mr. Williams that, I don't know enough about it either to know the level of turnover, but
Yeah,
with
I'd
all
like to say
respect.
that I have the city's best interest in my hands, and I will continue to work hard for the city and do my best in code enforcement department.
Right, so since this issue has come up, Mr. Midvarin, are you asking to provide, are you providing specific
I am going to
information?
ask that in the next cycle that we discuss this more personal issue in executive session.
Okay.
So that we can get, so I will send an email to ask for specific information.
Okay.
So all the council can be on the same page in terms of what's happening.
Okay. Yeah, because I was like, we can't,
No, we
we
can't,
can't go any
That's why
further.
I'm limiting, I'm just making a generic statement. As we are touching on this, I'm touching on the source and want to enforce this. How are we going to enforce it if we do not have full capacity?
So in a couple of weeks, it looks like we're going to be asking you to come back, and Mr. Midvarin can send specific information that you would like to. So we're putting in executive session. Okay.
Well, I'm not sure, I'm going to let the staff go into executive session depending on what the issue is. A lot of
I will let you know, Mr. I will let
Yeah,
you know.
he said-
Before we go into executive session, the next cycle, I will let
Well,
you
you
know.
go into executive session, there's no obligation for staff to come to committee meetings. They come to council meetings, that's what's in the charter. So you can go to an executive session, and discuss whatever you want. If I'm not supportive of it, I'm not sending staff to it.
Well,
Okay, then we'll discuss it in the public then, next cycle.
Okay.
Yes, that's fine, yeah.
okay. Yes, Mr. Farber.
So kind of in line with what we're talking about, maybe we could also look at like what, and I did talk about this a little bit during the budget session. We could talk about like what professional development opportunities are existing in the city. A lot of research will show that the right type of professional development helps build culture, which in turn helps with retention. So I just think that when we talk about that, maybe that's something that we can talk about. Like, and I don't know that it necessarily needs to be just your department, because number one, I think that you coming here and us asking you these questions, that probably didn't have time to prepare for. I think definitely I'm taking that into consideration as well, because these are some larger questions here. But I think that just to put it out there, we can start looking at like what type of professional development is being offered as a whole in City Hall to help with retention, because there's a lot of research that shows that that's a way that is a kind of a low investment but high leverage point to retain staff. So that's just something.
Absolutely correct in that.
So let me just say that, personnel and staffing is the mayor's wheelhouse, so we would definitely need to be talking with the mayor about that.
Certainly.
And offering, and if we know of any opportunities to offer that. So I just want to make sure that as the council, we don't go really too far down the road that really is not really with under our,
Yeah, understood. I was talking about just professional development in general as far as retaining staff and maintaining a healthy culture within City Hall. That's all I'm saying.
again, that belongs, we do. So we could definitely talk to the mayor about that, and I agree with you that it makes for a healthier work environment, a stronger work environment, and more informed and prepared staff. So, that was a 5-minute discussion.
Yeah.
Seven.
So thank you for coming. I know the mayor wanted you to come today and just brief us, but it's probably more than you anticipated.
That's okay.
But thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it.
Look forward to seeing you.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would just leave, return.
Well, I can just return to
Yeah.
government
Go
operations.
ahead, Mr. Party, yes.
So just returning to government operations, we have 2 items on the agenda. The first is update of Office of Affirmative Action Program. Mr. Gardner.
Hi, how are you? Good evening, good afternoon. Again, thanks for the opportunity to come up here and see all my friends again. This year, as you regularly aware, completely aware, there's a lot of anxiety out there regarding the EEO questions, DEI questions, affirmative actions, and anything in that wheelhouse. It's just been a completely off the rails conversation lately, and it's sad in one sense to have it and see all the pain that we're going through. But I think personally, I think it's good that this is coming to the light because it forces us to really look at ourselves, what we're really doing, and are we really trying to build a better community, a better country, a better family. So in that space, I think it's good. I mean, over the past year, we've had a lot of things that's been happening, throughout the Office of Affirmative Action, and we've been sticking to the mode of dealing with the whole mode of building a better community, building a better business, creating economic opportunities and contracting opportunities through the city and through our partners throughout the county and the state. And to that end, the way we've been doing it, or the way I've been doing it in my side of town is collaborating with all the partners. So the SUNY's, Schenectady Community College, the Career Counseling Center, Capital Region Chamber, the SBA office, the SUNY Career Counseling Center, as well as the Small Business Development Center. So we've been working with them on an aggressive campaign over the past year, rolling out a whole series of workshops and trainings and things to meet the need of this constituent that we're trying to represent. Because the challenges that we're looking at, the conversation that we're looking at, has always been there. There's always been this tugging and trying to pull at these type of support mechanisms, if you will. But the truth be told is we have to do a better job in terms of preparing our constituents for the challenges that they're going into. So, in other words, if we have like a bunch of contractors or businesses or things along those lines, they need to be able to come in there prepared to compete, be able to submit the bidding process, be competitive with the pricing and all those type of things, and understand clearly what they're getting into, because dealing with the municipality, any other venue such as what we have is very, very competitive. And I think getting the word out and working to that end is what we've been trying to do to make that difference. So that's in essence what it is. So in order to do that, when you talk about promoting the city and things like that, we've had several workshops in terms of how to do business with the city. And what does it take? What does the permitting process look like? What is the inside the city hall is like? Because as Brian was talking about his process and things happening down there, I can tell you that they have really been doing a great job down there. People come in my office all the time with different questions about the process and who to see, and I mean sometimes they're off the chart with requests, whatever, but every time I've been able to walk down the hall, speak to Brian or Anna or somebody in that department, and they come out feeling so much better. So they have been very, very responsive. So I will say that to every case. And it's hard out here, when you're dealing with people and you're dealing with anxieties and emotions. It's hard, So I just want to say that they are very, very responsive. They try to do the best we can, and that's what we all try to do here, as a team. So, as part of working on a collaborative basis, in your packet, you have things that, we've been doing with the workshop, the classes, and the custom skill classes, and all those types of things. And that's pretty much what it is, but that's what it takes to meet the people where they are, understanding the challenges and objectives, how do you bring on the partners to make a difference, with some of the big name partners that we have, and specifically on the private sector. You talking about like with the Key Bank, for example, that's coming in and did some workshop with us, or the insurance companies that comes in and talk about the bonding, or even with the state. Well, we're working with them, with Empire State Development specifically, with access to capital, the bonding support and things like that. And the trick with getting those kind of resources, you must be certified, United States certified as a minority women-owned business or disparate business. So the emphasis is really on us to help these companies become certified, in that space. So we spend a lot of time, in that venue and working again with our partners. And it's a full circular event. So if we're able to build those momentums up, we're able to create more opportunities for our constituents here in terms of jobs, things like that. So it really makes a difference. So that's what we've been trying to do. And we're just here as an advocate for our constituents, but basically, we represent the city and everything that we do, and that's how we present ourselves. Questions?
So you talked about a lot about the programs, and thank you very much for all the information and outlining the programs that you have. One thing that unless I'm overlooking, one that I didn't see in here were what the outcomes were from all the work that you have been doing over the past, I'll say 2024. So I don't see anything in here that specifically gives us outcomes in terms of the work that you've been doing, in terms of contracts with the city.
Yeah, I have, those are some attachments that should have been in the packet, but I certainly have that. To your question, so in terms of contracts with the city, so that's the list of the major contracts with the city broken down into a couple of categories. So the major construction contract is up on top. You'll see who got the contract, what the percentage are in terms of MWD participation. The next section I broke down, it has professional services, who they are, and who got the contracts and things like that. And then to go down to the middle section, those are who the MWD firms that actually got the contracts and what did they do. So in there, when you look at the top part of it, I like to talk about that. When you look at the overall contract and participation, it says, it might have 12%. Okay, but when you talk about the disparity, which is where we are, and you talk about the disparity within the disparity, so the women, out of that 12.5% or whatever, the women would have 11% of that, and then the minority business, down at the bottom there, would be at the 2.5%. So that's a disparity within the disparity. But the thing about that is, even though the numbers are low, we're fairly consistent with what's happening statewide. In other words, we're not so far out of this box that, exception like New York City might be a little different because, their density and their populace and all that stuff. But in our number right there, it's pretty much consistent with the upstate region, outside of the major pockets like Syracuse or Rochester. But in general, we're there, but we're making strides to get there. And what we have to do basically is roll our sleeves up and create more business opportunities. We got to develop more emerging businesses, which I would call like the Section 3 businesses, if you will. Get more firms certified, which is a enormous process. And then support them, with the mentoring and the protege and those type of things to move forward. So that's, in a nutshell, how we do that.
Thank you.
Just a couple of questions on this report here in terms of the percentage. So looking at this report here, you have one at 8.3%. I'm not going to call name. Can you highlight why is that happening? Because your goal is 30%, and this one here is 8.3%.
Well, it's true. Again, there's a lot that goes into the process. What we have is the goals are 30%, as it is. But a lot happens in that. One, you have to get the firms to bid. Number two, The next thing is they have to have the capacity to do the work. And we have to have a large enough capacity, for it to make sense for everybody. So we have, numbers all over the place, but that's what I'm finding. It's just not an easy, simple question. Some firms get it and some firms don't. But one thing that I'm glad you brought that up. This is an area that you as a council can help me though, as we put forth these efforts. And when these contracts come before you, for patches or execution, I would like to be able to come back and comment on them, saying whether or not they made sufficient efforts, toward the objective, and maybe with the council having the final say on it, you have a little bit more influence in terms of getting them to participate, a little bit more.
So, and the same thing happened for the last one down in the first table here, 13.9%. So my other question is, are you reaching out to these contractor to remind them that they're not in compliance, and are they providing exemption forms as to why they're not? And do you have those forms, approved forms in your office?
Yes, I have the forms, the waiver forms, and yes, and we work with them countless hours and times and days, from the pre-bidding process, through the bidding process, once the bids are open, it's just an ongoing challenge, just to, keep it simple. And that's all we do. That's what consumes all the time, is trying to make it happen. And I'll give you another example too. Let's say that we have a company that we really press, we keep pressing, and get out there, and the company is sort of like, not quite there yet, but we press, and they go on and they get the contract, and then they can't execute it. Either they don't have the manpower to do it, they don't have the cash flow to do it, or whatever, but something happened. So I've been working with these companies, and yes, I do give the waiver because I believe they're putting forth a good effort. They are reaching out, they are having a conversation, they are having this serious dialogue with them and all that, but sometimes things just doesn't work out, so therefore, the numbers are, what we get.
So just another follow-up question under the MWBE section, contract value. Is that contract value, or is that payment they have received to date against these lines?
Those are the contract values and the payments there, yeah.
So it's the contract value
Right.
and payments?
Right.
So they are 100% paid on the contract value?
Yeah, those are all completed out here. Yeah. And you got some, you have some that, that I would not count, if they didn't finish the contract, let's say they give a contract to X, Y, Z or whatever, and it didn't work out, and then that's not counted in there as a contract.
So just for clarity, can I ask you if you can just update this section here to kind of like, MWBE contract value that was awarded and payment received to date
Sure, yeah.
against each one of these lines. So I want to see if the contract that was awarded $300,000, if they actually received $300,000.
Gotcha.
I would like to see the delta, and I would appreciate if you can submit that to the council
Oh, absolutely.
this week.
Absolutely.
And this is from the end of '24,
Right.
right?
Right.
Just the end of
Yes.
the
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
then they
correct.
should be closed out.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to just look at it to see if we have any delta
This-
between the contract value and what they actually receive as physical payment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you can get that to us, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
So, Mr. Gardner, I had the pleasure of stopping by one of the classes that you were holding in the community, and had an opportunity to talk with some of the participants. So I want to say that it was very clear that they're getting a lot of value out of some of the classes and partnerships that you've been helping facilitate. I guess what I want to keep in the front of our mind is that, as we and you work to kind of help increase the pool of qualified workers to participate in some of these jobs, I want to make it very clear with us as a council that these efforts, as far as MWBE and affirmative action, these efforts were in response to lack of systemic protocols that were allowing people to enter in. So I don't want to getting our heads that we are pathologizing the actual workforce, that there is and has been historically people who are capable, people who are categorized as women and minorities who are capable of doing the work very much so, but have not had access to the opportunities. So as you work to do that, you know, you're working really from both ends of this problem. You're trying to ensure that there's a qualified workforce, which is a task all in its own, but as well holding, you know, our partners accountable to make sure that they're doing the work. So if you could talk a little bit more about what we can do as a council, because I know you kind of touched that a little bit, to support that part, I'd appreciate that.
Right, well, first of all, I think a big help would be, you know, if I had the opportunity to come in and let's say contract A comes up,
Okay.
I'd just be able to say, you know, here's the situation, and just let you know, here's the efforts so far, this is what we, you know, doing, and this is what we got.
Okay.
You know, and I've exhausted my resources in terms of, you know, getting more participation in there, and we're here. We might be 10, 15, 20 points shy of where we need to be. And then having a decision if you want to move forward, you know, with that particular contract. You know, there's some out there that are more responsive and work with us than others, obviously. You know, but I'm trying to work with all of them, and I think the council can help me tremendously in bringing that part of it, you know, as we, you know, move it, move forward. And to the other point, the workforce component is tough because you got so many variables out there. You're dealing with everything. You're dealing with so many, whatever. It's happening, you know, in reality. And we're doing so many different things. We're trying to help people get the CDL licensing, for example. We're bringing in people to help with the lead. We're getting the lead training, and we're utilizing our resources to help support and pay for those things. So we're doing a lot to build a better equipped workforce. Now, sometimes we get the disappointment. Sometimes I might have somebody that was sitting down there for a CDL license and they don't complete it or they don't show up. So we have that, but we are doing a lot, you know, and you know, we see a lot of calls on a daily basis. We meet people all the time, so it's just a constant going thing to do this. And sometimes it's overbearing, you know, to be honest. You know, how do you deal with people in crisis? You know, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor, but you know, you got a grown man sitting there crying. That's what I say, you know. I don't know. It's tough.
So is there a vehicle right now that is, I mean, it could just be something that we could keep on the agenda, I imagine. I guess I'm just looking for thought partners on how do we maybe operationalize what you're talking about, that scenario of, hey, working with this company, this is the efforts that have been thus far, and we're unable to meet it, or hey, even sometimes I'd like to know, like when there's a company that's really knocking it out the box. I think like that would be that'd be very valuable information, I think, for the council, so we can know how to better assess. So I'm wondering, like, what do you think like that might look like? And do you think that maybe just, I mean, I could keep you on government operations for you know, monthly report on that, or is it something that you want to do?
I can give you a weekly or daily report. You know, I'm totally open to that, and anything that you can do to help. I mean, you're very enormously supportive, obviously. I mean, you see what I'm dealing with out here, and you know, you brought, you know, people with situations of crisis together. We have to, you know, talk about them or whatever. But again, there is. It's just a process. You know, we have to get the word out that there's a mechanism in place to do what we need to do. You got a bid date, okay? And the bid date is on Wednesday at 11 o'clock. If you don't submit your bid or reach out to the people bidding or do anything, how can I hold contractor A? Does it become his responsibility to make him come out there and do the work? You know, but that's where we are. So we got to let folks know that you need to respond, be responsive, and be a responsible bidder, you know. And if you have those conversations, start those dialogue, you know, now we got something to work on.
Well, of course, have we, in your tenure in the city, is there any businesses, you don't need to call them out, but has there been a scenario where we where the city didn't, where the business didn't demonstrate good faith efforts in order to meet our goals, and therefore, because of that, the city declined to do business with them? Has that happened yet?
No, but I think we can get there because that's a powerful deterrent, if you will, to start moving in that direction. Again, we have to be careful in terms of how far we go down that rabbit hole. Because again, remember you're talking about competitive bid, you have to, be engaged in, it takes a partner too, So if we want to take that on, and I have no problem taking that on, but where I get caught up in the needs is, where did they submit the bid at on time? Who did they reach out to? And that's where I'm shut out. So yes, there's a lot that we can do. There's a lot of resources out there to help us. With this. Again, one of the biggies has been access to capital and bonding. So through the state, as long as we have like a government contract, like something with the city, we can work out resources through Empire State Development. So now we have the application downstairs. I walk them through the process in terms of putting it through. We have direct connection with the folks down in New York City to process it. So we can do that. We work directly with them and our partners through the chamber and community loan fund to help them get certified, which is the first thing we have to do. If it's something to deal with, bonding and, whether we have an insurance company, there's bonding companies coming up now to be more responsive to, to our need for, some of the smaller firms. So, there are opportunities there, but it's a lot of work. It's an awful lot of work, and be honest with you, it will burn you out if you're not careful with how to handle it.
Well, thank you for the work you do. I definitely appreciate that. I don't see this necessarily as apples to apples, but I think that there is some connective tissue, if you will, to our previous conversation with our code enforcement around, like, that certificate of that certificate of use permit. That is like essentially what the city is saying. If you're not compliant with these expressed safety things and values, then you really can't do business in the city. I'd like to see us take that similar energy as when we're talking about people that we're awarding these large contracts to, especially if they are not in compliance or making a good faith effort to become in compliance.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
Well, to your point, I recommend adding simply a column to the bidding summaries, and we're going to see some later in the evening. I think to your point, Mr. Gardner, if there is an ability for us to see in real time when we're doing this, we could potentially give it a grade. And I think that could be a starting point for a conversation, just so we have that information when we're reviewing it, when we're hearing it from presenters.
Mr. Gardner, are you still submitting your the MWB utilization plan before the contract is being executed?
Yeah, they submit that, yes, that's part of the process.
No, because Dave, are you still submitting that prior to the contract being executed? The MWB utilization plan?
No, I received them, I received the plan.
Okay.
And then once we go through it and we've exhausted all the avenues, and that looks like, what we're gonna get, that's what I have, yeah. So are you saying that you want me to submit that to you prior?
No, I'm just asking because that's one of the, when we initially drafted this, that's one of the requirements that it says the affirmative action officer must approve the MWB utilization plan, which shall become incorporated into the contract document prior to the contract being executed. So that is still happening?
Gotcha, yes, that's happening.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I do have, just in terms of the classes that you offer, how do we promote those? And that seems like a place that the council can help you, but
Yeah.
the classes that are attached to this.
Yeah, so basically throughout the network, most of like the workforce classes, the skills classes, the career counseling center, they would do the intake. I do like all of the job fairs and all that stuff. So it's like 3 or 4 a year that we attend, and we talk about each class that's coming up. So they take an enormous amount of the pressure off of what I have to do, because like when you look at it, to get like last year, I think we had like maybe like 40, 44 students actually in the classes, in 4 classes. But they probably look at maybe like 100 people or 200 people, you know, with the applications, you know.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And how many follow through and all that. So if you got a class, you figure you have 16, 18, you might get 10 or 12. And that's typically where they do 9, 10, 12 per classes, you know, where we're at.
I just have one more question. In the past, we had, over the year, we have raised your exemption from 100,000 to 300,000. And I can recall in this document here that you're asking us to move it to 500,000. Can you elaborate on that as to why?
Yes. I think one of the barriers we have in terms of growing the capacity of a small firm, this cap is one of the easier barriers that we can do to level the playing field. And what you said, you're not diminishing the quality of work. All we're doing is just raising the cap for more firms to be able to compete, you know, and a lot more contracts are coming out in that $300,000 to $500,000 range that can actually compete and make it a level playing field. They may not necessarily be in a position, they may not have, you know, an apprenticeship program, but they're completely shut out, you know, right from the gate. So we're just simply asking to raise that number up, you know, just to help grow the capacity, help grow the firms, you know, firms that's able to compete and grow. And at some point, as they get big enough, that's the firm we're going to be able to help them get the apprenticeship program and all the things they need to compete. But we can't grow them if they're constantly being shut out of the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner.
And another thing that would help too is, with certified payrolls, I've asked you to act on I want to require every certified payroll be submitted electronically through our system, you know, for payroll submission. Because when you get a certified payroll, there's an enormous amount of stuff that goes in there, looking at, you know, verifying work classifications and codes and rates and all that. It's just a killer of the time. We have a system in place right now that's perfectly capable of doing it, which is why we have it, why we pay for it. But in the past year or so, a couple of years, we've been getting resistance from contractors because it's not in the contract and we did not have this particular language specifically in the contract. So that's why I'm asking that we have, say specifically, we want to have mandatory certified payroll submitted electronically through our system.
Okay, so is that something that,
Mr. Chairman, I can just, that would be through the purchasing policy. And I think in a couple of weeks, the Finance Committee, Finance will be putting the purchasing policy for the city before you, so those are sections that you can amend at that time, so the next committee cycle, you will review it, change those sections dealing with the thresholds, if you wish, and the mandatory electronic filing of those payrolls. You could put that into the purchasing policy, and then you do a resolution adopting that policy for the upcoming year.
Mr. Gardner, is that something that you could work with the law department on so we can look at that language?
Absolutely.
Because I want to, that's something I would, right, I'm saying when they do submit it through finance, we want to make sure that it's something that Mr. Gardner, I'm sure his expertise, he's seen this language in contracts and different contracts. So I want to make sure that you have input on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was my question, because I was going to ask when the policy is up for renewal, and that's my question, because that was part of the whole big package. We take information from Mr. Gardner's recommendation, we put it into the policy, we update these documents as backup documents towards the policy, which we have done over the last 7 years when we work on these documents here and to update the purchasing policy. So I'm glad that work with law department and get that incorporated as a draft, and we can able to revisit it and move forward with recommendation.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lupe. Appreciate that. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have review of amending certain sections of the city code. This is President Porterfield.
Yeah, so this is, we already know that there's certain language that was outdated and needs to be updated in terms to allow our code to, well, specifically it was around notification to the council. So our law department has updated the information, given us a draft on that, and we will have the public hearing on the 10th of March.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments on that? At this time, I'd like to adjourn government operations.
So,
Motion to adjourn.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You're adjourned. So as a call to order the Public Safety Committee, we have one item on the agenda tonight that is a discussion to review the noise permit applications. Mr. Levin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The last time we visited, we reviewed this, this permit application in the draft format. There were some suggested changes that we then asked the Corporation Council Office to go back and amend the version here and to bring it back to us for our consideration, final consideration. I just want to remind us and remind the public that this is not something new. It's part of the City Charter 182-4 that says that the police department, police chief has the discretion to issue a special permit. What we are doing here, we're working on presenting the application to make it available for the police department or anybody else to issue the permit. So that's all we're working on. We're not asking to, at this point in time, to revise the city charter. It's about working on the permit, make it available so people can come in, access the permit, and pull this permit so that they can hold their special event.
Mr. Chairman, just since our last committee meeting a couple of weeks ago, we had our office, the legal office, had some discussion with the police department regarding the form. I think before we go any further, are we all good with the application itself? Okay, based on the highlighted portions or what you all put in last time. It's my understanding the chief wants to designate some other entity besides himself issuing this. Obviously, any applications would have to go, or approved permits would go to the police department, so they would have ready access to it in case they're called to any location. And just a couple of follow-up questions regarding, do you anticipate, if somebody does not have one of these permits, do you anticipate have a punishment, or not punishment, a fine for lack of does the council wish to have that? In other words, if they didn't pull the permit, would there be a sanction?
So my question is, can it be default to the noise ordinance in terms of you have exceeded the
Right,
decibel,
I mean,
you've exceeded
the noise
50 feet, so you default back to that as not having a permit doesn't shield you from.
Right. I mean, it was
Violation.
I think the discussion was last time that all the rules and regulations regarding the parameters of the sound would still be enforced with the permit. And Mr. Newbergen, you're correct. I mean, they could still be, if they had the permit, they could be cited, and there's a fine structure in the code already for that. But not a separate standalone for failure to have. I mean, if you want one, you can put one in. If you want to have a separate standalone, if you don't have a sound permit for your location, that could be a standalone offense. Or, as Mr. Newbergen said, you could go to that house, and if it's noisy, that's a violation. That's what you want to do. I'm just throwing that out for discussion.
So that, I know before we discussed, should we ask for a fee in order to even get the permit, and I'm still a no on that. However, I'm not sure if it's a clear path for us to say, you don't have the permit, and now we're going to default to another one. Should we put something in place? I know that it means amending the code that specifically says, if you don't have your permit, it will cost you this amount of money. That is what that I'm understanding Mr. O'Brien said.
Right.
That we would have to change the code and give it a specific number, so this...
You would have to add that, because even though the code already has the application in there, it doesn't say, there's no sanction for not having it. So if you want to add that, then we would have to amend the code. You would have to amend the code.
Ms. Patrick?
Well, I think if we're putting this permit into place, that we should have a sanction if someone doesn't have the permit. I agree. I think we decided last time that we weren't going to charge a fee to get the permit, but, I mean, why have the permit if they, why are we doing this if we're not going to have a sanction if they don't get the permit? So, I would be in support of having a sanction if they don't have the permit.
Mr. Carly?
So I would say one of the reasons that we were talking about why the purpose of doing this, and not to speak against a fee or not, but just a reminder to the council that hopefully that this process will help with efficiency in addressing this issue. In other words, so if someone has a noise, has this permit, and then police have to respond to someplace that they know, oh, there's information of so-and-so that they can talk to, because so
Right.
therefore they can, there's a point person there. So I
Right.
think that helps with efficiency in the system, and maybe a phone call or a contact might suffice if we could talk to one person instead of sending out one or two cars. So I think that there hopefully, and we'll have to wait for to see what the data tells us, but should be some savings in the efficiency of the process there.
Mr. Woodring?
Yeah, thank you. So instead of us attaching a fee, why don't we craft it in a way that if you're not in compliance, you default to the existing punishment that is on the books? So we don't create two different sections at the same time. When in the ordinance, it's already there as a fee for if you're not in compliance, or if somebody has to show up at your house, you're in violation of the city noise ordinance.
If you want to connect the two, you're going to have to amend the ordinance.
But we can do that, yes.
Yes,
But we
yes.
shouldn't create two
I mean,
different
if you-
sections with two different fees.
If you want to clarify that, for a point of clarification, it's not bad. In your packet, I also provided you just a draft process ordinance, if you want to work off of that.
If I can respond to Saeed and also Ms. Patrick, to Mr. Woodbury's initial point, I would support responding to any event, and there was not a noise ordinance, treating that like a violation because they are responding to an issue. I think in that we could put in place a grace period to allow the community to understand that this is a process that's going to be going into place. But I agree, if you're responding because of an action.
Yes. And yeah, if you don't mind, just add to that, sorry. And that will just default back to the existing violation, the noise ordinance that we have in
So,
place.
just to be
So we can link the two.
Yes, you can link the two, but you're not setting a separate standalone fine, like a $500 fine, for
No.
example. Okay.
So what is the fine for that?
It's $200. I think there's for first offense, there's a table in the ordinance, there's a table of fines for, I think, up to $200. I'm going to take a look.
Ms. Patrick?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I think that's, linking the two makes sense to me. And since we have, talked about the fines for the noise ordinance violations, I think linking the two makes sense.
But that would happen, sorry.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yeah, just for penalties for offenses, it's under 182-6, and it talks about shall be punishable with fine not to exceed $250, and then
Yeah.
based on further events, it goes up. But the first offense up to $250. And so, the code, the new section, the new paragraph, could just reference that section.
Yeah.
So that was my question, thank you. So then we would just, in the new ordinance, reference that this
Correct.
is what will happen if we are not in compliance
Yes.
with adding that.
Yes.
The other thing is that we did talk about an applicant needs to be at least 18 years of age.
Yeah.
And I see that it's further along in the document. However, I think at the very beginning, it should be there, so the person knows that if you're not 18, don't even begin this. Like, under instructions, you have 1, 2, and 3. And
Okay. We can just add that.
I would just add that,
Okay.
just so the person is aware right off of
Okay.
the back.
Because we have the declaration at the end.
Yeah, that's a declaration.
I know the declaration's at the end, but in the person getting their application, I think they should know from the
Okay.
beginning that you have to at least be 18 to even start this process.
Ms. Patrick?
I also was wondering back to, Mr. O'Brien, you said that the chief doesn't want to be the person.
Yeah, I mean, there
I
would
get
still-
that, I
they would
understand
still-
that,
they-
but who
I mean,
would be
internally,
recommended?
it's internally what we can work out.
They'll figure that out.
Yeah. internally, we can have a designation. And we'll work that internally, and hopefully we'll get back to you in a couple of weeks on that, so you'll know. And we'll put that in the code.
Mr. Rivera.
So just to add to that,
Since
so
we're already amending it anyhow, so.
can we keep the police chief or designate?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
And simplify it the best we can, so that way he can
Yes.
assign
Or
anyone within his
designate, yeah.
department to kind of have
Yes.
on his behalf and not be specific to the chief of police.
Yeah, I mean, the way I put it in this draft ordinance, I said the chief of police or their designee.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I can change that, or the chief of police or their designee. So, I mean, we can change that. We can add that into the code. So it'll be the chief of police, because it's already in the code.
Yeah. Just to add to that, so the last time we discussed here a couple of weeks ago, we were looking at not calling for public hearing because we're not making any major changes, but this is major changes now to this document here and
Yeah,
for us. So should we go ahead and call for a public hearing in the meantime on these, you're working a draft, so we can revisit next 2 weeks and then move forward with it?
Yes, that's a good idea. What I can do is I can draft a resolution calling for the public hearing. I'll add the new language for the application, and then I'll work up language later this week regarding what will be before the public for the public hearing. So when you come back in 2 weeks, you'll see the final draft for the public hearing.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you. So we have to move this item, calling for a public hearing.
Yes. Calling for a public hearing on for March 21st.
Somewhere.
Is it maybe yes, March
17th and Monday.
24th. March 24th. A resolution calling for a public hearing on Monday, March 24th.
So, man, what is the public hearing for?
The public hearing is for the amendment of adding a new section to Chapter 182.
182. I'll move that.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any other items to befall public safety? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
I'd like to call to order public service and utilities. We have one item on the agenda tonight. The Office of General Services update regarding trash collection sticker program. President Porterfield.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Toro. So we know that we had talked about earlier in the year about the rollout of the sticker program for our trash. And I'm getting inquiries. We were at a comprehensive plan meeting in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood, and the questions came up regarding where the process is at this point in time. So I reached out to Mr. LaFawn, yes. I reached out to Mr. LaFawn to please come and give us an update so that when we're asked, we can answer those questions. We know that this is supposed to have an actual start date of April 1st,
Well, that would be the enforcement date.
the enforcement date.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I think what was just handed out by the mayor is a copy of the stickers. These stickers have been ordered, and they are scheduled to be here either tomorrow or the next day. Within the next couple days, they will be at City Hall. So they will be available for the enforcement date or a little earlier if you want to come in and start purchasing them. But that is a copy of the sticker that will be available to them.
Paul, thank you for the graphic. Come on, take a credit. Sir.
Mr. Clerk.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Porterfield.
So where are we in terms of the rollout, in terms of the public service that we, announcements that we had talked about?
Well, what you asked me to do is to see if we can sort of track what was out there right now. And to the best of our ability over the last 2 months, we did some tracking with our staff that's on the trucks. And over the last 2 months, we got to realize too that January and February are big months for moving stuff out. But we do have an average of about 250 bulk items per week being picked up in January and February. So in about and a daily high is 91. And that's the best that we can do. I mean, we're not We're not counting the specific bulk items like mattresses, it's just the bulk items in general. And also that we're averaging about 54 stops that have 10, because we also look at the bags, even though there's nothing set in stone with the number of bags. There's about 54 stops that are averaging more than 10 bags per week. And again, you know, January, February aren't big times. I think more garbage will start to come out. You know, warmer months, people start to clean up their basements, their cellars, you know, move some of the bigger items. Bless you.
Thank you.
But that's where we are right now with the data that we have. And it's fairly accurate. The guys in the trucks are trying to keep track as they go down. They relay it back into room 9, and it's recorded. So if you look at, and Chris wanted, you know, the commission wanted to put some numbers together. And if you look at the current bulk items, about 250 per week, if you look at that as a revenue number, and you assume, because everything is different, the numbers taken, but you assume 2 stickers pulled per bulk item, that would generate about $130,000 with the data we have currently only for roughly 2 months. So that's where we are right now.
Awesome.
So $130,000 for 2 months or just?
No, that would be for the year.
For the year.
Oh.
Oh, okay, I just,
I thought he meant 2 months.
That'd be nice.
I'm a number guy, I was like multiplying that by 12.
Right.
But, you know, we anticipate those bulk items to start to come up, because when spring comes, people are going to start, you get, you know, income tax returns will be coming, people are going to be shopping, they're going to be looking for some of those household items that they want to replace, couches, beds, you know, so.
Good question.
The 54 stops, is that per route or every?
That's on a weekly basis, yeah.
Per every, weekly, okay.
And the bulk is more in the neighborhoods, which is District 2, which is Mount Pleasant, Hamilton Hill, because there's more, you know, 2 or 3 family units there. So that's where the bulk of the garbage is generated.
So, question, so regarding the revenue of $130,000, was that study done based on the 250 items during January to February and what is chargeable?
That was based on the average that's currently that we have for the 2 months. If we assume 2 stickers went on every one of those items, those roughly 250 items, on a 52-week basis, would be about $130,000. And again, this is the start of a program, so you know, we get through 1 year, we're going to know a lot more. I mean, 2 months in the worst 2 months of winter, people aren't doing a lot, cleaning out their basements and moving a lot of furniture out. It's just really the basic stuff that's going outside. So, you know, usually, you know, a good year is going to show us exactly what we're, you know.
So back to letting the public know, you said these are going to come here in a couple, we're going to be
They
here
should
in a
be
couple
here
of weeks.
either tomorrow or the
Couple of
next
days,
day.
okay, couple of days. And then we want, so the enforcement's going to start.
Won't start until April 1st. It's 90 days, I believe.
It was April 1st was
April 1st.
was the start
Yes.
day for enforcement, the ordinance effective 1 January.
So that only essentially is giving 3 weeks to let the public know, to get stickers. How are we?
No, we let them know when you first approved it back in December for January. So the resolution was done 60 days ago. So it's been out there. I've gone to neighborhood meetings. We can't. We're not doing violations right now because we're not enforcing nothing.
Right. In your opinion, do you think we really did enough PSA? Because I'm going to tell you, I know because obviously I'm sitting here, so I'm not even an accountant myself. And I know some of the neighborhood associations just aren't a lot of people there. Have you feel there's been enough public notice that people are going to be aware and we're not going to hear a lot of, I didn't know about this?
I think anybody who gets a violation is probably going to say, I didn't know about it. It's going to be a common thing they're going to say, I didn't know about this. A good example is water meters. Water meters have been in effect for how long for the city of commercial accounts? And I still get, I didn't know. You know, there's a lot of people who don't know until they get a violation, and that's just something they come up with. I didn't know we had to do this. We had 3 weeks. We can do some public announcements. I can talk to the mayor's office and do some public announcements. But I think, you know, most of the neighborhood meetings I've gone to, they know that this is coming, and people who do call in with questions, they do call in and ask when this is taking place. We do tell them it did take effect in January, but this is sort of the break-in of the grace period that, when April 1st comes, that's when we'll start doing a notice of violation. And again, that's going to go to property owners, not tenants.
Yeah, so I think if we could do something in the next 3 weeks, that would be extremely helpful.
Mayor?
Follow up to the council president. Some of it was to get this graphics in place. This QR code, I think, goes back to the generic component of the city website. So it's to fine-tune that so the messaging there is more clear and reflects the changes in the code. And looking to take this logo and put it on some of the garbage trucks so that it just reinforces the messaging. So we are looking to upgrade that and be able to put out more detailed and specific information. But some of it was having, again, those graphics in place so that we're consistent as we're rolling out the formal messaging.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a question. I know we spoke at one point about sending maybe 3 free stickers out to every property owner. Every residence, so the resident would get them versus the property owner. Is that something we're still considering doing?
In the legislation, the council didn't adopt that, so at this point, I'm not looking to send out the free stickers. We would be ready to make them available, and as Paul points out, in the next few days.
Thank you.
And once we get them in, we'll do an appropriate announcement for that.
No, when we discussed that, I don't recall that we were like, we have to move that over the city. I think that was like a gesture of goodwill from your office to kind of send that sticker out. I didn't recall that we were like, we have to pass it or add that into the resolution at that point in time. So maybe we need to revisit and amend that resolution to kind of add that, because that was promised to the residents of as part of this rollout, as part of the PR. Paul, I understand that you're meeting with the neighborhood. Yes, I had a chance to attend one of those meetings, very informative. Chris Long did a wonderful job up at Union Street there. But when we discussed this initially, actually, we were talking about, you just mentioned it, some sort of a PR in the mayor's office, PR, you're working with the mayor's office to get something out there more. Because not everybody is at these meetings, and we just want to make sure that we inform people that April 4th is coming up. And this is what's going to happen, but we need to do something a little more better, for lack of words, in terms of getting the message out there. So I kind of, glad that you're going to step forward to do that, but I think we need to be more aggressive in getting out in the next week or two.
And we can look at, some announcements through the Gazette, the local paper or something. We can work with Michelle, the mayor's office, and see what we can do with the local paper. And something on, on the radio. As for the, mailing 2 free, stickers to everybody, they probably have to go to the property owner, since the property owner is the one that's going to be responsible for any violations. He'd have to get them to their tenants. And again, you have to look at the, at the mailing. There might be a different way of doing some things, but that's something that's going to be discussed further, I think.
I do know with the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit that just came up, it was all over every newscast in Schenectady starting March 1st. So, again, we can always count on our news channels as well to get something out. Ms. Patrick? Oh, I thought your hand was up.
It was, but these guys, I put it down.
This question is for Corporation Counsel. Is that something as far as, because I feel strongly that we need to send those tickets out, these stickers out. I think that not only will, I think that will aid in kind of helping people, raising awareness of why, people say, oh, I got the sticker in order to do this, so next time I know I need to do this. I think that will be a useful tool. Corporation Counsel, is that something that we have to include? Do we have to pass that by resolution in order to do that, or is that just something that we should?
We'll take a look at that. We're going to take a look at that. That you're talking about the 3 stickers? Is that what you're talking about? Mailed to the
Homeowner.
The homeowner or to the deliver, not the delivery, the pickup location. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Ms. Porterfield?
So I have to agree with Mr. Rivera, and I saw other heads nodding around the table. We did say that we would do that, and it was not my understanding either, Mayor, that we would have to put it as part of the resolution. So it was my expectation we're going to do that. And a suggestion, this would actually have to go through the Department of Development, as they're doing their Electric City Recharge. The next one, I believe, is March 13th. So that might be an opportunity to have information there, if I would assume that the Department of Development would be open to that, to have information there for the people that are there to know. So in every opportunity, I know that you said the neighborhood association meetings are happening, but anything else that the city is doing, I would gladly take information and have it at the Green Market table, so that when people are there, so anything we can do to do that, but definitely I think we need a really stronger push, a more aggressive approach to this public service information, that people aren't coming up saying.
We'll work on some things to get the word out.
So if you have information and you have it for this coming Sunday, I'd be glad to have it at the Green Market for you.
Mr. Motivate?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on that. So do we need to, for that change? That
It actually is in the ordinance.
It's in the ordinance.
It's the ordinance?
Good work, Mr. Motivero.
Killing us. So nothing, waste 2 minutes there. Thank you. No, we had to address it anyway because we made a promise to the homeowners then that we're going to do the 3 sticker, and it was well received across the council. And if we're going to backpedal on that, that is not fair on our side to do that to them. So I'm glad that it's in there, so we don't have to do anything.
Perfect.
So to say it has to be mailed?
Yes.
Yes.
That's a lot of postage. Because I was saying it might be a way to just
Amazing.
keep track of people came in and just got them, and we put it in units. That property received the 3 stickers, because putting them in the mail, that's a lot. And are they going to go to a resident? You get an apartment house with 3. Are they going to go to the 3 residents, or are they going to go to the property owner? Or do we do it as the tickets are going to be at the real receipts where they can get paid for it. Maybe there's a way to track it where people can come in and pick their 3 free tickets up, and they show an ID when you put that down as a property is received them. I don't know, rather than mailing, if you'll get units, we get 22,000 units in the city of Schenectady.
So Paul, that's a good point brought up there. But as we talk about PR, we talk about how we're getting the message out. Can you incorporate that into the message that you're going to be sending out in the next week or 2, that they can come and pick up these stickers
Well, yeah, make sure
in-house?
that's the agreement.
Because we're looking to save costs. You just mentioned it, 22,000 units, 22,000 envelopes,
22,000
stamps. So we can do that as a PR drive to say, come in to the specific location, pick up your sticker, and that should be the message out there to kind of like save on costs.
And I think when we talked about it, there was an issue with where landlords who are out of state, so that's why I thought we talked about making sure each address had their stickers, but again, we can talk about, how you could work it out, how they can come in, maybe get it from the Bureau of Receipts or something, or OGS or something.
We all know the mail doesn't always get to where it's supposed to.
Absolutely,
And if
absolutely.
people come in and say, I just never received it, there's no way for us to pull it back or cancel a check. We went through that today with some stuff that was supposed to go out through HR, and it was certified, and it's been sitting in the post office next door since last week. So there are some things that, that can happen through normal mail, and people can come in and say, I never received them. Do we just say, well, it was mailed and that's the end of it? So I don't know. I think over the next couple of days, we've got some discussions.
Mr. Williams?
I would say it's a courtesy, more or less, not a necessity. So I would caution to your metrics about the 22,000 households. Can City Hall incorporate that additional foot traffic? And I think the other issue is how do you manage who got one and who didn't? So I think doing the mailing, that is our attempt. If you had not received that, unfortunately, this is the process moving forward. I don't think we're going to identify everyone or hit everyone, but I think this is just a good faith effort, trying to make sure we're putting our best foot forward. In that mailing, there can be additional information about what to expect moving forward, how to find more information. But I think inviting that many people here, I think that in of itself is a bigger issue.
But I just,
Ms. Porterfield?
so I think, just to be clear, I think we're gonna send them to the Bureau of Service, so not City Hall? Is that what you're saying the stickers would be at the Bureau?
Well, we could, since the first set of stickers are free, there's no money or cash involved, so we won't be able to come up with a place, but again, I mean,
It's bureau receipts. You put in the ordinance, bureau receipts.
Oh,
where they have
so it
to
is,
purchase.
that's where they
Purchase,
purchase.
purchase
that's
are
where
the
they're
bureau
purchasing
receipts,
It's only place we can
because,
accept,
Right.
payment.
But you were saying the free ones you want to go to Bureau of Service, but is that now off the table?
I don't know, like I said, we're gonna have to, if the free ones have to go, we're gonna have to figure out how they get distributed.
Ms. Patrick?
I just think that that is something that the staff can work out internally.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
So
I love the sticker.
I just want to touch back on the PR. So you're hoping to get it out in a week or two.
I will work.
Please include us in that release so we can help spread that message out there. And all of us are going to be working on it as a team.
Ms. Porterfield?
And just if you have anything before, by Friday.
I'm ready for Sunday's meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be ideal.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. LaFawn. Any other business before public service and utilities?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All
All those in favor?
yeah.
I don't know, I was looking to see who else was here.
I'd like to call the order to City Development and Planning, and the first, we have 8 items on the agenda. The first item is discussion Duane Avenue traffic calming measures. Mr. Wallens.
Hello.
Hi.
So, as promised last year, we put out a bid for the permanent installation of traffic calming measures on Duane Avenue, the 2 speed humps that were essentially piloted there 2 years ago. The bids were returned. The low bid was Carver Construction at $26,000 and change. The reason this is discussion on an award is $26,000 under our bid threshold, so we're able to award it without going through council. However, I know that this was a project that everyone was interested in, so I wanted to make it a discussion item if there were any questions about it.
Go ahead, Mr. Mutavera.
Oh, yes, I have a question. When we discussed this a couple cycles ago, you were going to look at not only Duane Avenue, but other streets like Rugby.
Yep.
And so what is happening with those areas?
Yeah, there's been a transition at SPD with a new lieutenant in charge of the traffic division, and I've been working with him a little bit on some of the parking things that we've going on, because we're looking at some parking changes, working with Metroplex. We're also talking to some other vendors, and this was one of the things on there. So I haven't had too much of a discussion with them. We want to identify, so how I see it going forward is 2 paths. The 2 paths are going to be the speed table request form, which I was working on earlier while I was waiting for my time today. So I got quite a bit done with that. And I'm going to be coming to you with that for the next meeting. So like I said, the 2 paths I see are going to be a recommended path by the city, which would be a group of myself, the mayor, the police department, and Brian Cannon, using some of the data that we have. And when we go with the city's recommendation, I would think that we'd be able to deploy our temporary speed humps and measure and see some of the results similar to what we did on Duane Avenue. And then the second avenue is going to be the request form, which you guys saw earlier, later actually last year. And that was what prompted the city council to change the city engineer responsibilities to include speed tables, cameras, and other traffic calming devices. So that will be coming to you. I made some changes to it, developed some documents so you can review that next time. So that's what I see as a two paths. So I will be working with the police department on where our next implementation is in the spring. And then we'll also talk about how many implementations we think is reasonable a year. Is it 2, is it 3, or where we want to implement? Because we do have them, they were proven effective, the temporary ones. So we would like to get them out there. And I know that you've requested that.
So you say you're gonna have that information in 2 weeks
Yes.
for us?
Yep.
So we'll just have to add that back on the agenda.
And the other part, just so you're aware too, is this was another necessary step I wanted. So right now, what we're going to be doing is, these are going to be the city standards. Now, maybe we tweak them a little bit, but the permanents are going to be what we use going forward. And now we have a price. Before it was, what do you estimate this would be? So we have a price. They're, roughly $13,000, but that also includes, we have custom striping, signage, things like that to go on. So now we can use this for budgeting purposes going forward when we want to know how much these are. So I think this bid and then the information that we're going to have, I think that's going to set us up for being able to plan a lot more effectively.
So in terms, we always talk about speed humps, and that was the terminology. So you're talking about speed tables.
Yep.
So can you just elaborate a little bit more on what the difference would be? Is what we saw on Delaney Avenue going to be what's going to be?
Yes.
Or is it going to be the graduated stuff that we see in Albany?
No, so tables and humps, I try to use that, but not a bump. A bump is
Not
more of
bumps?
a bump is meant to slow you down. It's more applicable for a parking lot. These are more applicable for public roads. We are going to sign them at 5 miles per hour less than the speed limit, just to make people aware that something is coming to change. Even though if someone were to drive them at 25 miles an hour, there would be no damage to your vehicle. They are gradual, they are signed and striped, but they are something that should be a deterrent. One of the locations that we're looking at too, that I actually had a meeting on, is Central Park. We're looking at that. We have a lot of work going on in Central Park. We looked at some of these. The other thing that these are used for in the DOT is these are also very similar to what they call a raised crosswalk. So speed tables and raised crosswalks are essentially very similar, except we're not walking on these. These are not, but they are. You're going to come up 4 inches over 15 feet, top, down. They should be better for trucks. And the idea is, the idea is to keep you driving the speed limit. It's not to make this a parking lot. We're not trying to make the city a parking lot. We're just trying to enforce that people are driving the speed limit, which is now 25 miles an hour.
Yes, Mr. Williams.
Thank you for that. I'm trying to remember the presentation where you gave us the findings. Is there any way you can make public the streets that this would not be applicable in? Because I imagine everyone is going to.
Yeah, so that list I'm working on that, and that will be, so what I'm going to be giving you at the next cycle is essentially a package. And that package is what the public will see hopefully when we do this, which will be where we will allow them, where we won't allow them. There are, residential neighborhoods are what we're looking at, not commercial. One of the things that I just want to get out too, just to make sure as I was going through the details of it tonight, is the difference between a homeowner and a tenant or a resident in a home that they do not own, because we're basing this on petitions. So, how do we want to handle that? If someone who is a renter wants to fill out this form, technically they are not one that would be able to sign the petition. So I don't know how that affects the petition aspect of this, because right now it's written that way. So that's just something to think about going in, because when I was writing down all of that, if you were in an area with a majority of renters and they wanted a petition to put in speed humps, they would actually not be the ones that could sign the petition. It would need to be the property owners, because that is how we verify petitions.
Go ahead.
What have we done in the past in terms of, for example, the sidewalk petition or some of the other?
Homeowners. It has been
I'm sorry,
homeowners.
what?
Homeowners.
It has been
But
homeowners, okay.
that is because the homeowner is the one paying
Right.
Right.
for
No,
those costs. So in this case, that's where I wanted to get the hinge point, is that the tenants are the one living on the street, but they're not, I don't believe that they're legally allowed to sign the petition unless, I don't know. That's not my department, but I just know that all petitions to date, when they're verified by the law department, they're using
that.
Homeowner.
Yeah,
Mr. O'Brien?
Sure. When you're dealing with like sidewalks and curbs, that's going to be an assessment on the person's, the property owner.
Yes, it
Their
is.
taxes are going to go up.
Yeah.
This is kind of different. Well, it is different. There's not going to be any price associated, but this is affecting the residents, whether they own it or not, on that particular block.
Absolutely.
So there's not any expenditure like sidewalks
Yeah.
or curbs. So as the council goes through that, perhaps you want to be more liberal in the sense of what 75% signatures are, property owners versus residents.
I think that's an important point because a lot of the property owners don't live on on the street where this is impacting people, but the people that renters it's impacting their quality of life. So I would say that if there's an opportunity to do that, that we should be able to expand that and include the people who actually live there who this is impacted, as opposed to those who own multiple properties and aren't living at these particular locations. So I appreciate you pointing out the fact that in times past it has been property owners, but also it's because there's an assessment, there's a value that they would have to, and money that they would have to put out, where this doesn't have that same aspect.
Right.
Gina? Yes.
Sure.
Yes,
So I would agree that very important distinction to make, and we want to make sure that people who this is the impact, the probably like going to be most impacted, have the most voice in this. So definitely, we could just do that by changing the language of the petition. We don't have to.
The city engineer, Mr. Wallens, is drafting up a policy, so you can just find it. That could be
The
included.
question is how we would verify a petition based on, right now, we would base it off of tax records. Does the name and the sign match the tax records? How you would verify someone's address who is a renter without asking for specific information to verify that they're at that address. Now you're taking that to the next step. I don't know if that's something that we want to do, or if this is a honor system policy, which also has to be followed.
I think that I would recommend a more liberal approach. That's up to the council, but we'll look at what Rochester did, but I would think a more liberal approach perhaps is the best.
Yeah, I don't know that residents will be going out of their way to sign a petition about something that I don't know if they'll be lining up to do that. So yeah, I would agree that we want to make it accessible to people as we can. Just a question around, we're making these changes in the city. There are mixed reviews as the decision, how we're making the decisions. I think that we need some intentionality around like some of the things that we were talking about, like some of the pedestrian safety, things like that. Is there any intentionality of putting together a report, maybe if it's, even 6 months after, so residents can see what the changes that we're making, how they, we could demonstrate that the city is now in fact safer, or I'll just open it up to the kind of council, like, what are your thoughts on that? I think that that's something that we probably all the residents want to make sure that they see that we're making informed decisions and what those decisions are, how they're impacting the things that we talked about.
So just to clarify, so essentially, we moved, changed the speed limit to 25 miles an hour, and what's the impact on that? And the speed tables, and what is the impact on that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So these changes that we're making in terms of public safety, how it has improved?
Yeah, I want to make sure that information is explicit for residents so they understand, how and why, and effective or, ineffective that those choices are.
So you're asking that from the engineering?
Well, I guess I'm asking if you have any input on maybe what that could look like, and also to the broader council too, to think that you get their thoughts on that as well.
Well, right now, what I would say is that at Duane Avenue, we have a study which was given to the council, and that showed the effectiveness of the speed tables. So that is why we're moving forward with this. That was the City Avenue. I feel that when we move forward with our next, that we will do similar studies, because we have the technology to be able to do that, where we have automated counters and the staff and the services to be able to do that. But I'm going to say that at some point, if we notice a trend, we will not do this for everyone. It will be for instance, the Federal Highways has known mitigation measures for traffic calming and pedestrian safety. And they are approved federal countermeasures to do things, such as what you see, the rapid flashing beacons, high visibility crosswalks. So you don't verify it, they actually come with factors of reduction for safety in a manual. These speed tables probably have that, but I know that people want to see the actual effects that this will have. So I can see that where we put them in, where there were none, we put in the temporary, that we would do that. But I did talk with, I believe it was Carmel, about the importance, though, when you go to 25, working with the police and documenting the reduction.
That's
But one of the things that I impressed on Carmel, and I believe even in Marion, because of some of the conversations were, now that we've made this change and we're enforcing at a different lower limit, you know, to just kind of pause a little bit on the, you know, all of the requests on some of them. I know that we've gotten complaints on speeding on, you know, Eastern Parkway and some of the other areas that were just, let's see if that actually has an effect on it. I'd be interested to see, you know, even if it's 6 months, give it a summer, it's still, you know, snow on the ground.
Right.
And then to see what implementation, that other implementation factors that we need. Because this is a, you know, I feel like people think that this was just a move to lower the number, but this is, it's a big task. It's more than that. We've lowered it. The enforcement should be tied to it. It's something that, you know, took us almost 2 years to get done.
That's right.
And now that it's here, we're keeping it. And so that's why I would like to give it a little bit of time. I'd like to see the results. That's not my department. I do work with them, but I am anxious to see.
Yeah, I just think we have to do that, especially all the work that went into it. Now that we're implementing it, people need to see that the effectiveness of the decisions that's made. If not, then, you know, people are kind of left, you know, just thinking that this is some unilateral, arbitrary decision we made just for the sake of it. And I just think that being that we have the technology to capture that, that'd be great if we could do that. So let's put that out there. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Patrick?
Well, I do want to say, and, you know, for the public record, that it wasn't a unilateral decision.
Oh, no, I know it
No,
wasn't.
I know,
That's what I'm saying,
I know,
right.
but obviously we've been seeing some of that feedback. But there was a traffic study also regarding, I mean, you and the traffic engineer consultant did present to us, you know, in this process in terms of some studies that had happened. We also looked at research from other cities.
Sure.
You know, in New York State and around the country. So I do want to, you know, but obviously we do want to see what the effect is in a longer term, you know, time period. And the enforcement is absolutely going to be an important part of it. And as, you know, I think as we look at the big picture of the other traffic calming measures that Mr. Wallen's working on in terms of speed humps or, you know, even down the pike, you know, what are we going to do in terms of doing narrow streets, widened sidewalks, you know, some of those other kinds of things that we've talked about. You know, it's all going to be one big package that the reduction in the speed limit is one part of.
Any other questions, comments? This is a discussion item, so I'm sorry, Mr. Williams?
Just a comment, Mr. Williams, you were talking about one of the special city council meeting to talk about the same item. Is that still on?
I don't think it's special, I think it was a committee meeting. But
Committee meeting, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
It was, I'd say, based on the conversation we've heard previously, I thought that there was an expectation for the council to give you some context on how to proceed moving forward. It sounds like you have that expectation. We're going to use the additional information that you received from the community, and I think looking at what streets are not suitable moving forward, I think that's appropriate, unless you have any other questions you're seeking from the council.
No, what I said, what I bring forward, it is for your review. You know, everyone can review and comment. It is, like I said, we based it off of a previous done by the city of Rochester. We changed it for City of Schenectady standards. I'm trying to make it so it is as clear to someone that using that package as possible. So, you know, not only are there maps, but there are lists. You know, there are, you know, instructions. I made a custom form that you fill out so that no one's writing an actual letter. You know, it is a fill out this form. It's very simple to make the first request. And then I'm sure it'll be a learning process as we go to there. I don't know how many we're going to get. I don't know the capacity of how fast I can do some of these things, because once you initiate that, as you'll see in the format, there are steps that then I have to do. So then it becomes, you know, residents filling out forms dictating our workload. I do not know if I need a consultant then to manage that workload or where that's going to come from. There's a lot of things to play out. There's also, just to tell you, one of the things to discuss when you're reading it is there is the complication of parallel streets. That may sound like just a word, but it is possibly a big deal. And I will tell you personally, from growing up on Ardsley, which is directly adjacent to the high school, if you put speed bumps or speed tables on Ardsley, you have 2 parallel streets, then another 2 parallel streets, and you now are 5 streets. And so the cost of that program does get bigger. How do we want the other streets then to petition? Are we reaching out to them because they didn't petition? It's kind of that thread that you're pulling, that if one street comes that's parallel and says this is what we want, what other? There's also the acknowledgement that we have to have that if a street is listed as a primary street, let's just say Michigan Avenue, and we put speed tables on streets next to Michigan Avenue's traffic could go up. Similar around the high school, McClellan Street traffic would go up. Those streets really aren't eligible for speed tables because they're primary roads. So while you are possibly making some residents happy, there could be another side that you are not. So those are all the things that when you're looking at the information as we go down this road, we just have to acknowledge. We have to go in with our eyes wide open about not everything is going to not have a repercussion on the other end.
I like what you did there as we go down this road.
Yeah, and I was on a phone call earlier today and I said a bumpy road. So that was another one that I like to use.
Any further discussion on this item? Okay, this was just a discussion item, so the council is not to...
But we are moving forward, just so you're aware.
We're moving forward with the Dwayne Avenue traffic calming. Item number 2 is the change order approval to the Schenectady Municipal Golf Course Maintenance Building.
Several cycles ago, we awarded a electrical contract, $80,000 project for the upgrade of the electrical service at the municipal golf course. Since that time, they have been working on some small projects to bring outlets and things like that into the barn. As you see here, up to $20,000. That was the lowest that I could approve. Working with Paul's electricians, the city's electricians are very busy. They're working at the greenhouse, at the wastewater treatment plant at City Hall, at the fire department, and Paul cannot commit them to finish any more work at this golf course facility, and he asked that I extend this contractor so that we can finish the work. We still have some outlets for large equipment that need to go in. We need to hook up a new external fuel tank, and then some other little odds and ends. So what I'm asking the council is to approve me to spend up to an additional $20,000 with this electrician for work at the golf course.
Any questions? Joyce?
I'll move this.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next item is the ceremonial resolution. Thank you, Ms. Patrick. Ms. Patrick, spoken with the group that's going to be coming. Mr. Mancini will present. He's unable to be here tonight, but so next, this coming Monday, the group from AOH is coming to receive the resolution.
Yep.
I'll move it.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
The next item is a ceremonial resolution for Holly Pagwa. Mr. Mutavarian.
Thank you. March 14 is the Hindu Spring Festival. They will be having a celebration on March 14 is the holiday. March 15 they will be having a celebration at the Schenectady Hindu Temple. They are once again asking us for a resolution to join them in their celebration for 2025. Resolution draft is attached.
Any questions or comments?
I'll move it.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item is the reappointment of Mary D'Alessandro Gilmore and Imran Khan Mohammed to the Board of Assessment Review. We received a letter saying that both of them, their terms had expired. I reached out to both members to ask if they were interested in remaining on there, and they were affirmative in that. So at this point in time, I'm asking that we reappoint Mary D'Alessandro Gilmore and Imran Khan Mohammed to the Board of Assessment Review.
I'll move it.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The final items are all are for either lease agreement, illustrative sale of properties, so they would need to go into executive session. At this time, I would ask for a motion to recess city development and planning.
So moved.
So, second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, we're recessed.
So I'd like to call to order the Claims Committee. We have 2 remaining items on the agenda tonight, the first of which I believe needs to be discussed in executive session.
I think just the claims, the 2, item number 1 was already discussed, so.
So I'll ask for a motion to enter executive session. I will second that. All those in favor? Aye, we are in executive session.
Members of the public will have to leave.